thinking about this, I thought, we'll use small area games as an example. So it's kind of, small area games, SEGs are kind of in vogue now. And, but there was a time I can remember, and I think that, certainly in Canada here, was very much influenced by USA Hockey. But I can remember when people started talking about, it's like small, it's like cross ice hockey. Like, how much cross ice hockey do they expect us to play? And then, of course, through, coaches sharing, and this just speaks to the value of that. People are like, oh, there's actually for a variety of ways we can do this. And it's like, oh, these aren't actually just the fun things you do as an incentive for players to work hard in the real practice. This is beneficial to the overall learning environment. And I'm going to be really curious to see, the more that we talk about these constraint approach to practice, like how that's going to involve the drill. And so I saw a presentation from 2001. Since then, I think everybody's kind of back on the ice or back to normal. Have you seen any evolutions or coaches do anything where you're like, wow, that's a kind of a genius way of approaching that?
Well, at the elite end of our sport, yes. I think there are programs, here in the U.S., some of our junior teams, there's some that are really kind of gone down this rabbit hole in using constraints to shape the behavior of the activities. And what you'll notice is that it may not necessarily be a game, because it doesn't have to be a game itself, but there's live action play going on in almost everything that they do. And they use space, right? Like, I think this was I know when I started scouting for our national teams, in the early 2000s, I could go into, as you said, a lot of rinks and I wouldn't see a small area game being played. Now it's hard not to go into a rink and watch a team, especially our better ones, not doing several and right. And that's been a huge benefit to our players.
Yeah.
Now, have the coaches always understood the nuance that might be involved? No, but they saw the value in compete, right? My players are going to battle, compete. We're going to reduce space, those things. But it goes the other way. And I think one of the things that I wish we hadn't done is called them small area games. I like the soccer term better, small-sided games, because we play with both numbers and space. I mean, think about your kids. Like, sometimes we can make the area too small, right? Like, as coaches, we should be thinking about how do we manipulate the space to get the right decisions, right? So there's an evolution going on here, looking at the different ways that we can incentivize things. I think we're a long ways away across North America, especially at the youth landscape, from understanding how to use constraints and really get into these game and game-based play and how it lines up with that. But certainly there's been an evolution in our sport for the good in doing more small area games, more live action type of things, compete, and thinking about how these activities might shape, the behavior of players. So it's happening. It's just, I think when we throw around terms like ecological dynamics and all that, people just glass over real quick and go, oh, And I will say the language can be inaccessible sometimes. That's why even me trying to explain super complete, because language is very specific, especially from a scientific side of things. Words have meaning. Like our staff jokes, I'm not allowed to use the word affordance in any of our clinics, and it's something that's in the literature that when you talk about, from an ecological psychology type of thing, ecological dynamics, it's a pretty important concept. We have to find different ways so we don't have people gloss over with this. How do you make this accessible for coaches to understand and go? But it's a good point that you brought up. It's coming, I think.
Well, I would just say, case in point, like good luck going to a NHL practice these days. I'm not saying
Oh,
a,
geez, yeah,
small-sided game,
yeah, yeah,
pop out.
yeah, yeah.
So and I just want to point this out for our audience because I came across this and I I think this is just fascinating stuff. But there was a great study was put out by Callie Vallejo, and I
Yeah.
hope I'm saying that
No,
right, from the head of development for the IIHF, now used to be with the Finnish
yep.
Association, and Martin Lundby. And it was on the title of the study is called "Game Formats for Youth Hockey." Research by Finnish and Swedish Ice Hockey
Mhm.
Association. I bring that up because there's some fascinating data and
Yes,
how games are constructed, and they studied
yes,
the number of puck touches and just certain events that occurred. And man, it's I just given that I kind of get up and do this 9 to 5 every day. I'm like, man, we got to get this information in the hands of more people because this
yeah,
really validates the direction we should be going. Um, I've heard, Ken, that when we look at, say, Finland and Sweden, that they have some advantages just perhaps based on geographically and the number of participants they have in the sport, just in terms of gaining you know alignment. And I think about that. I think, okay, like, just how does that affect us in Canada, because we really dig into the numbers. The
yep.
places we sort of consider to be the best, maybe aren't the best, or at the very least we should be have an open mind and looking everywhere for ideas and how to best develop players.
Mhm.
But I'm curious, like, with the benefit of hindsight now, like, I don't know if you have data on this. I'm pretty confident that the USA Hockey coaching app, the ADM website, are probably the go-to resource for coaches around the world. Like, I would love to see the analytics on where people are coming in to view
Yeah,
those
we do get
resources.
people for around, you know, again, we try and make things free to people, and we do, like, we're not a, it's just the kind of the way we operate. We have a membership that signs up with it, and we were like, okay, well, how do we make things easy for our members to find? And
Well,
we've always taken that track.
Well, a case in point. So, I would say, listen, anybody can do an app, but to have one that's easy to use and user friendly, particularly, like, let's be honest. I know that we were juggling some IT issues to kick
Mm,
things off here. Like, the audience that you're trying to communicate with probably aren't, they're not Gen
yeah.
X's. Let's put it that way. When it comes to this stuff. So, my two thoughts. One, do you think there's been a benefit for USA Hockey? You grew up in California, and I want to
Mm,
hopefully dive into that a little bit. But do you think there's been a benefit that you've had to educate players and adults in
mm.
non-traditional markets? So you've had this challenge where in Canada we don't really have, it's pretty
I would
chances
say,
are slim you're
yeah,
talking to people that aren't familiar with the game or have a passion, but you're trying to educate people where they got to start from square one. And is that maybe proven to be
yeah.
a bit of a
I
benefit?
think that's been an advantage in some respects. The open book. Again, we've grown excessively in the quote unquote non-traditional markets. I mean, we're beneficiaries of the NHL, the AHL, the East Coast
College
Hockey
hockey,
League,
yeah, yeah.
right? College hockey. When they've grown in these other areas, it's more exposure to the sport, more rinks have been built. And so, yeah, I mean, I look at our advantage maybe over Canada is that not every little town that's played ice hockey in the United or plays ice hockey in the United States has had an NHLer come out of it, right? Like, every little small town in Canada has had at some point an NHL player from their community. Like, so when you look at the culture behind the sport, culture's hard to change, right? And
Yeah.
look, Canada's got. I mean, it's fantastic. I mean, every other TV commercial when I go visit, there's got a hockey bend to it. Like, right? I mean, hockey's part of the culture. It's great, but it also makes rapid change and deployment of new ideas a little bit harder. That's where our colleagues in Europe have it a little bit easier. Their ability to get new information and rapidly deploy within their
Yeah.
structure is just considerably faster than it is for us in the size and nature of what we are. But I would say we do have an advantage, as you pointed out, that it's the new parent to the sport that's going to coach that doesn't know anything. Well, at least they're a little bit more open to what USA Hockey's trying to push.
If you are involved with the Minor Hockey Association that hosts tournaments or multiple tournaments, or you're a coach who operates spring tournaments, or any organization that puts on events, then you're going to thank me for introducing you to Event Connect. Event Connect makes managing and growing your sports events simple and efficient. It literally covers every aspect of the event management, from scheduling, linking out-of-town teams or visitors with hotel bookings, to capturing registration fees and collecting additional revenue, all on one platform. Best of all, it's free. Event Connect receives a small fee through its payment processor, but there is no upfront investment. I got introduced to Event Connect because several of our league and association partners began using them and raved about the time it saved, how user-friendly it was, and the additional revenue they were able to generate. In fact, the feedback was so positive, we began using Event Connect to host TCS Live, our annual coaching conference at the University of Michigan. It was a great decision. I know firsthand how stressful it can be to run tournaments and events, and can't imagine going through that process again without Event Connect. If you want to simplify the process of organizing your tournament or event and tap into new revenue, then go to eventconnectsports.com to book a demo today. Don't go through the painful process of trying to run your next tournament without Event Connect. Go to eventconnectsports.com and get started now.